Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janizewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. We're coming off of the Independence Day holiday. I know you had a lot of family around. I
Yep,
hope you enjoyed everything and had a lot of good times.
absolutely. As I said, it was very pleasantly exhausting, but it was grandkids and sons and daughter-in-law and all that, and it's just great. So, but it's good to be back here in total silence doing a podcast too, without all over the place. So,
And this actually is a very special week. Uh, I actually lost track of time and did not realize this until it showed up in my calendar a couple of days ago. But this is the 10th anniversary of the Exvadio Podcast Network. Our first podcast was done 10 years ago, actually 2 days ago, 10 years ago. So we have been doing podcasts for 10 years. We have set, for our 10th anniversary, we're bringing some back with new seasons. And we have done literally thousands of podcast episodes at this point.
well, that's great, and it's been a pleasure to be involved for the last few years. But I mean, if we were zooming and everybody was here watching this, there'd be a whole lot of virtual
Right.
right there. But congratulations, Eric.
So we've got a lot to be proud of. And a lot of it has to do with what we've been teaching. And we've done so many empowering podcasts and informative podcasts. And we're going to pick that up and keep going with it. So today we are talking about something that most people have experienced at some point. Actually, two things, and that's feeling like a victim and feeling jealousy over what others have. And we are inundated with media, social media, of people telling you, oh, everything's against you. You can't do that. Oh, they have it so much better than you. And it's really about creating your self concept and not letting others shake you from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the definition of victimhood is the condition of having been hurt, damaged, or made to suffer, especially when you want people to feel sorry for you because of this or use it as an excuse for something. And then victim mentality is basically at the root of that is that none of these circumstances or situations are your fault. They're everybody else's. And then the keeping up with the Joneses, if we want to call it that way, is just comparing how you're doing versus everybody else. And it's human nature because we've been trained this way growing up, as far as comparing what we have to what other people have, to get jealous and a little bit down on yourself for not having what other people have. And that's just because that's what we've been exposed to, especially now in the days of 24/7 saturation from media and so on and so forth. That's just what the emphasis has been on, when we totally forget to work on the person in the mirror and realize that we all came, and when we were a child, and I've had a really big dose of this in the last week, watching my 1-year-old starting to walk and everything else, and he's just fascinated with everything and smiling about everything, no cares in the world except getting fed and that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden life starts happening to us, and our parents have gone through it, so they have their own biases and their problems and so on and so forth. We're exposed to that. Then the kids go to school, they're exposed to it there. Peer pressure, that's when they start comparing themselves to the other people there. This person's more popular, and so on and so forth. And then the influences when you're growing up, going through school and high school and college, all the pressures to do well and achieve and achieve and achieve. And nobody talks that much about what's truly inside of you, what you really want to do. And most importantly, patting you on the back and saying is it's okay to do that, because that person in you is a wonderful, wonderful person. And we all came from the same source, which is 100% good, and yet none of that is emphasized with all this bad. So I mean, basically, what we're talking about today's kind of like an awareness session that you need to take a time out and to be aware of that. The fact that this is what you're exposed to. It's your choice if you want to let it get to you, but it's your choice to let it go too.
Exactly. There's two elements of that definition you gave of victimhood that I really like. And the first one is it's if you want people to feel sorry for you. Now, why would you want people to feel sorry for you? I mean, wouldn't you rather people look at you and say, it's like, wow, that person's really got it together, or that person's doing great things. And yeah, they had some huge challenges, but look what they've done. So, I mean, why would you want to be considered a victim and have people feel sorry for you? And the second part of the definition that really strikes me, and I think the second part is the answer to my question as to why you would want somebody, people to feel sorry for you, was the word excuse. That's what victimhood is. It's an excuse. It's an excuse not to take responsibility for your actions. It's an excuse for not doing your best. It's an excuse for not putting the effort in. It's, oh, everything's against me. I can't do it. Everybody says I can't do it. So why should I bother trying?
Yeah, and a lot of it all comes down to mindset, really. And I mean, if you look at, we talked about conforming to society's standards of achievement and so on and so forth. And then the peer pressure comes in, and basically, you and yourself, your mind is going 1,000 miles an hour all day long, and self consciousness and being worried and fearful of what others think, thinking that you're not worth stuff and so on and so forth. Really, it's a problem that all of us have. And so for self-protection and validation, that's where we go, comparing, criticizing, blaming, which is what this
Yep.
victim is all about, and sacrificing personal happiness just to fit in. And what I like to use when I teach my power positivity course is, and I know that I've used this before in here, but if you picture everybody as being in their own personal courtroom, and the courtroom is empty except for you. You are the judge, you are the accused, and you are the jury, because you know what? There's no jury there. They're all in their own personal courtrooms going through the same thing that you're going through, no matter how confident and so on they seem to be in front of you. They're all having these same problems themselves too, because we're all human. And all we're doing here is just making you aware of this. So if you can get out of that and then start getting rid of these things, these bad habits that we talk about when we're talking about positive mindset development, make a conscious effort to stop looking at things in negative tenses. Stop watching the news all the time. Stop complaining and judging and criticizing and comparing. Basically, when the conversation comes to that, either walk away or turn it around to something else. And the bottom line is you'll start to develop a more positive mindset, and that's going to influence yourself and everybody around you. The bottom line is you're still going to have your problems. You're still going to be by yourself a lot, and you're going to have those up and down thoughts. But if you're just aware that this is where we all came from and this is where we're all going, we're just spirits on a human journey here. And so enjoy the ride while we're here, because there's a whole lot of stuff to enjoy.
Yes, there is. And you hit upon something when you said turn it around, because I have found, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this, but one of the best ways, or technically two of the best ways to turn around feeling like a victim, are actually using two emotions that themselves are usually characterized as negative. And those two emotions or characteristics are stubbornness and anger. And you use those to turn things around. Because when somebody says, "Oh, you can't do this," one of the best reactions that you can have is to get angry and say, "Oh, you think I can't do this? Watch me." and prove them wrong. Go out and use that fury, that anger, that stubbornness to show the people saying, oh, you can't do this, how there isn't anything holding you back, how you can do this and you're going to. And that's, there's an old saying, living well is the best revenge.
Yeah.
And that's part of all of this. It's not letting people keep you down because they're jealous of what you might have. Show them, yes, you can accomplish this. You can do this. There's nothing stopping you but your own mindset. And you can do it in an empowering way, not saying to these people, look how wrong you were, but saying, see, I did it, so can you.
Yeah, absolutely. When I talk about turning the obstacles into opportunities, I list all those bad habits like criticizing, comparing, jealousy, and so on and so forth. And we turn them around 180. A lot of it has to do with appreciating the person that you're dealing with and using empathy and humility and so on and so forth. And when I talk about jealousy, I talk about, hey, being happy for people for their good fortune. But the other side of that, which many people don't think about, is what you just mentioned. Turn that into an incentive to do it for yourself. And that's
Yep.
exactly what you're talking about. And there's nothing better than being able to do that and not going back and saying, I told you so, but just doing it. Basically, example is not the main thing in influencing people. It is the only thing, as Schweitzer said. And the bottom line is, if you're out there just doing it, being a positive example, you're going to feel better about yourself on the inside. And people are going to realize that, and they're going to catch on too. So you're actually going to be making a positive influence on a whole lot of people just by doing that. And it's in everybody.
Yes. And that is key. I actually saw an interview not too long ago. Two African Americans, I'm not going to go into names and topics, but two African Americans who were very successful were on television talking about racism. And one of them said, one of their positions was, oh, there's racism everywhere. And the fact that you and I succeeded is the exception to the rule. And the second person said, no, that's not, we're not exceptional. Everybody can do what we did. You have to put in the work. You have to make the effort. But there isn't anything holding people back except their own belief that they are being held back.
Yeah, when you chunk things down to simplicity, it all begins with the person in the mirror. You can have your groups of people who are this and that, who are in favor of this and who are in favor of that and whatever, but it's every individual's in that group's choice. And if they make good out of it, it's because of what they individually are doing. And that's how you can really start a new movement and whatever. The bottom line is, again, we are so saturated by all this that we become brain dead. And it's something to latch on to because these people talking about it seem confident and knowing what they're doing. And yeah, that sounds like a good thing to follow. But when you really, really think about it, you got to ask yourself, is this really true? Is this really me? And most importantly, just do something about it because you can. It starts with individuals. You're not going to wave a wand and all of a sudden political parties are going to be united and everything's going to be hunky dory. It's never going to happen. You're never going to wave a wand and all kinds of nationalities and religions and so on and so forth are going to come together. But when you come to the fact that we all come from a singular source of good, we're the ones that invented the words and the feelings and everything else that's, as I said, God has fun looking at us all because he gave us all spirit, but he also gave us our consciences and the ability to make things happen ourselves and analyze things. And it's that analysis which leads to comparison and so on and so forth, which is something that came from humanity, not from him. But it's got to be amusing for him to be watching us do this kind of thing. That. Just understand that that's where it really is. I mean, your true source is your true source, and inside whether you are feeling the right thing or the wrong thing or going along with the Joneses or really just being yourself. And you're not going to wave a wand and make it better all the time, but you can do it one present moment at a time, because that's all we got. And if you can have a few more present
Yes.
moments a day and tilt it over 50% in your favor, man, you got a good life going on.
And we've been talking about keeping up with the Joneses, and that the jealousy that is part of victimhood. They go along side by side, because you don't know what somebody else went through to achieve what they did. And there is a great cartoon that I see pop up on social media from time to time, and it's what people see, and it's the top of an iceberg, and it's like and then the second panel is the work that went into it, and it's the 90% of the iceberg that's submerged in water. People don't see that. They don't know. It's like there's no such thing as an overnight success. Overnight successes take years. Yeah.
Absolutely. I know that I've talked about this a lot before, but one of the best books out there is called The Five Agreements. And basically, it just talks about you and really just source being. And it talks about the five agreements. And this is with yourself, with your own mind, to make yourself better and to throw out all this stuff on the outside. Number one is be impeccable with your word, which just means be yourself. Look into yourself and be who you are, and let that be what you talk about, what you think about, how you interact with people. The next two are really, really important, because this is what gets us into trouble.
Actually, actually, I want to stop you right there, because as good as that book is, there is a step before being yourself that most people don't do. And that is, you have to take the time to understand who you are, learn who you are, and be proud of that. You can't be yourself until you understand what that means. And there's so many people that say, oh, I have to find myself. The truth of the matter is, you don't find yourself, you invent yourself, you build yourself. So you can decide who you are and create that person. And then you be yourself. And now let's go on to step two.
I mean, that's what you were born with. That basically, that's your true self, as you talked about. It's just your being, and being is not a word. Being is just the being. So the other things, these are the human things that get us into trouble. Two is don't take anything personally. The bottom line is you don't know where people are coming from, and so on and so forth. And so if you can just let it go in one ear and out the other, you have no idea what's going on with their day and so on and so forth. That's so important, because the only person that you know and that you're in control of is yourself. Number three is very similar, and that's don't make assumptions about things. You make assumptions about people, about situations, about this and about that, and so on and so forth. And they may or may not be true. What we're getting back to is the truth, which is where you truly are, what you were just talking about, where you're from. And then number four is just always do your best with whatever you do. Sometimes your best is going to be great, sometimes not so good, but just keep plugging away with that. And then number five, which is the second book, the fifth agreement is just be skeptical. In other words, what people say and do and so forth, they are not necessarily the truth. So question that, but learn to listen, meet people in their place, and so on and so forth. And you go back into your true self, your own impeccability, and you can figure that out. So if you have that guy going for you, it's really, really important. But the things, I mean, if you can take away today and say, for the next week, I'm not going to take anything personally, and I'm not going to make assumptions. You're going to mess up from time to time. But if you start doing those two things, think about what's going to happen to your life. You will start having a wonderful day.
Yes, and remember the old saying, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. And it's important to remember that. And the other thing is, you need to have some perspective. A lot of the jealousy, the victimhood comes from people saying, oh, it can't be done. You can't do that. That's impossible. Well, you know what? There have been a lot of impossible things. In 1920, it was impossible for an airplane to lift off. In 1940, it was impossible to put a computer in your pocket. In 1960, it was impossible for man to walk on the moon. And yet we've done all of these things. And each time somebody said, in 2000, it was impossible to launch a rocket, have it come back to Earth, land vertically on a ship, and reuse that rocket. And yet Elon Musk has done that over and over. Everything was impossible at one point. It's what you need to remember is that things are only impossible until they aren't. They're only impossible until somebody does them. And there's no reason that you can't be the person that does them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing about history is I've said, I mean, humanity has always been in conflict with each other over this and that. Things like jealousy and comparison have always been there. But we've come from basically living in caves to figuring out fire, to figuring out how to live in homes, to electricity, and a whole lot of other things over the years. And again, I mean, you and I have grown up with a whole lot of this in our lifetimes.
Yep.
And my kids and grandchildren are seeing even more. It's just been incredible. And just again, it's just a testimony to the human spirit and what we can do if we apply ourselves to doing that. And yes, all the technology that's around and so on and so forth, it's fantastic in a whole lot of ways. I mean, medically and so on and so forth, it's incredible where we are. It's when we take a look at the have-nots that are in the haves and use these things against us and against others and so on and so forth that we get into trouble. And it's so easy to do it these days, obviously, because of social media and being basically nobody knows who you are if you're putting it in Facebook or someplace like that and so on. So it's so easy to do that. And what that does is it just adds fuel to the negativity fire.
Yeah, you need to remember that everything around you, all of the things we take for granted on a day-to-day basis, phones, computers, television, satellite communication, somebody invented all of these things. And the people that invented them were told, oh, that can't be done. And usually they were told that over and over again. But you don't have to listen to that. If there is something you want to create, there is something you want to accomplish, there is nothing holding you back but you. And again, I used Elon Musk as an example a few minutes ago. Elon Musk is actually the perfect example of this because Elon Musk wanted to have a convenient way to pay for things over the internet, and there wasn't one. So he invented PayPal. Elon Musk wanted to drive an electric car, and there wasn't a convenient way to do it. So he invented Tesla. Elon Musk wants to go to the moon, and there wasn't a convenient way to do it. So he invented SpaceX. All of these things came because he wanted to do these things, and others said it was impossible. Others said, no, it's stacked against you. You can't do it. Can't be done. And he's proved them all wrong time and time again. And you can do the same thing, whether it's a modest goal like losing weight, whether it's a moonshot goal like creating a new technology. The only thing holding you back is your own belief that you can't do it. And we are here today to tell you that you can.
And think about the ways you probably have many times in your life. Next time you're feeling down on yourself, write down those things and realize that you've done a whole lot of good stuff yourself. That's a great starting point.
Oh, absolutely. Take a look at what you have already accomplished. A lot of these things you might not have thought were big deals. I do this all the time. I will talk to somebody about something I did, and I don't, I've never brought it up because I didn't think it was a big deal. And their reaction is, what, you did what? How did you, it's like that happens because we all downplay our own achievements. And the fact that we downplay them creates this mindset that, oh, I'm not that big a deal. I'm not, I can't do these things. And you can, and in many cases, you already have. So look back at those achievements and use those to inspire you to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a big misconception out there that it's not okay to pat yourself on the back and not feel really proud as far as pride, and hey, look at me type thing, but just genuinely proud of what you're doing and celebrating the accomplishments that you've had. We really have been brought up. It's kind of like human nature to kind of oh shucks ourselves a lot. And you need to go out and celebrate when you've accomplished these things, and you'll do it from your heart. You're not doing it from bragging or anything like that, but you got to do that because otherwise, if you can't celebrate, that's just a really another way of making yourself a victim.
And we've been told so many times not to achieve. And people actually use biblical quotes to say, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And if you take a look at it, most of those quotes are misquoted. The biggest one that comes to my mind is money is the root of all evil. And that's actually not the quote. The quote is love of money is the root of all evil. If you're doing something just for the money, that's probably a sign you shouldn't be doing it. But it's not the money that makes it evil. It's the fact that that's the only thing you're looking at and not the effects of the accomplishment, not how strong you can make others with your accomplishments.
Yeah, it's all in the motive.
Yes,
It's not in the physical goods. It's all in the motive.
exactly. So, when somebody tells you, oh, can't be done, your first thought should be, watch me. So we are just about at the end of our time. So what do you think is the big takeaway you want our listeners to have from this episode?
Well, as you know, I always talk about the power of positivity and it being a choice, and I always talk about the present moment, which is all we have. An event, basically, life is just a series of present moment events, and the formula is event plus response equals outcome. And if you can guide that with positivity, the magic is going to happen in your life. So simply, it starts with you. If you can have a positive attitude towards things, positive things are going to happen to you. And I just heard a quote today, which is great because basically, once you start doing things positively, you're going to influence others just by doing what you're doing. And I heard a quote today. It was by Dennis Mannering, who I guess is an author or something like that. But this is something you should take away. Attitudes are contagious. Are yours worth catching?
I love that. Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway from this episode is the fact that if you feel you're a victim, if you feel that jealousy of others, it's not really about other people holding you down. It's not about what other people have. It's about you not being comfortable with who you are. And that's really the key. You need to be comfortable with who you are. Get comfortable with the person in the mirror and get to like that person. When you like who you are and you appreciate who you are, then you can accomplish more. You can put the work in and do what it is you want to do, no matter what anybody else is telling you. So get comfortable with the person in the mirror, get to like them, because you're going to be spending your entire life with them. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.